Hello everyone and welcome to Werven's World and welcome to my introduction to the Lumeris. The Lumeris are all about dust and economy, and in that way they are quite similar to the roving clans of Endless Legend if you've played that. They do play completely differently though, so let's first look into their introductory video to kind of get a feeling for the atmosphere of the race, and then we'll dive into the mechanics on how they play. Just a little interesting thing, when I was looking for this cinematic in the Endless Space 2 files, I saw that they were not called the Lumeris there, but they were called the Venetians, which is just a little tidbit that I found interesting to mention.
Sure, the families have disagreements.
That's why we have codes.
To work together. You don't steal the fish from somebody else's plate.
The second he walked in, I knew the kid was different. He'd take risks, break the rules that tied my hands. But he ignores the codes, goes overboard.
And dust, powerful stuff.
No personal use.
So we collect it, invest it.
And he misuses dust.
Complaints get handled here.
Not in back alleys.
Applies, shall we say, unnecessary force. Maybe he knows dust, but I know the families. And I need both of those to take the galaxy.
Alright, let's have a look at the Lumeris. So first of all, they are planet brokers, which means they can use dust to colonize instead of using colonizers, and they can negotiate or trade outposts using diplomacy. So how does this work? Well, let's say you want to get a planet, then first of all you of course still need the technology in order to get that certain planet, like these technologies with the flags on it. Like this one here, which would allow me to colonize ice. So if you have the technology, then you can just click on this one, and as you can see here, I could now colonize this planet instantly without using a colonization ship for a certain amount of dust, which increases throughout the game. So if I click on this, then it basically just acts as if I put a colonization ship there. So I still have to do all of this stuff, I still have to wait a couple of turns, it's just that I don't need to build a colonization ship, and I can just do it with dust instead. You can actually not at all make any colonization ships. As you can see here, you basically just start off with a scout ship, and then of course you can research the military ships, but you don't have access to a colonization ship, so you always have to do it through dust. Then we can look at the second part of the planet brokers, which is that they can negotiate or trade outposts using diplomacy. Well, these things here are outposts. So let's say I now want to negotiate with another clan, let's say here with the Unfallen. I can basically just say, well, hey, what about I give you this outpost? What is it called? Is it Gatrea? It is Gatrea. So then I can just tell them, well, here, you can have this. And then they like that. And then I can say, well, I want to have this technology for it. So you can use outposts as part of your diplomacy. Then we have the Lumeris themselves, which are clever, greedy and Epicurean. The Lumeris society is built on economic gain and diplomatic negotiation. So as you can see here, the Lumeris give you +3 dust on fertile and +1 dust anyway. So it depends a little bit on the system that you start in, because at the moment here I have sterile, 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 which is not that great for me. But as long as you have a couple of fertile planets, you will be making a lot of money. However, they don't give you anything else, so it's just money. They don't give you production or food or anything like that, and that's something that you might notice throughout the game. Secondly, we start with Gnashast citizens, which give us these guys, and they basically just do damage whenever you get sieged. So they do +50 damage done to the attacker during a ground battle, and then 50 extra when they're on a fertile planet. So these also don't give you anything production wise. So again, you will notice this early game, especially that, well, you will be lagging behind a little bit in your production and food. However, this becomes less of a problem once you have researched this technology here, the accelerated production, which allows you to buy out things that you're building. So you don't actually need that much production, because you can just spend all the dust that you're gaining on buying these things out instead. Then they have blockade breakers, which means that your trade routes cannot be blockaded by opponents in Cold War. Once you have researched this technology here, I think it is, yes, commercial frameworks, then you can start making trade routes. And these trade routes can be blockaded once your enemies are basically blockading the systems where you have the trade routes, and that makes you lose all the income that you would get from them, which can be quite significant. So with the Lumeris you don't have to worry about that, they cannot be blockaded, so you will always get your income from your trade routes. So as you can see here, when our trade routes are being blocked, we still get the message. However, as you can see, there's no lost income. So because of these blockade breakers, we don't have an effect of it, but you will still get the message. Then we have optimistic, which is great. You get a plus 20 happiness on your systems, which is quite strong, I think, because happiness does two things. First of all, you have the planet happiness. So when you go to your planet, you can see here that if everyone is very happy, you get plus 25% food on your system and plus 25% influence on your system. But also if empire-wide people tend to be happy, then you get extra dust and science. So this happiness is really quite strong. Then we have Efficient Explorer 1, which gives us +1 maximum probes token exploration ships. This is quite nice. As you can see here, normally when you have an exploration ship, you get one of these probe modules, which gives you 2 probes. So if we actually click on our exploration ship, you can see here that we have 3 probes, so we got 1 extra. This allows us to explore more curiosities quicker, and especially we start the game with 2 exploration ships, so we basically immediately start with 6 probes, which allows you to go through curiosities quite quickly. This is quite nice because there are some missions that are about exploring curiosities quickly, so you will have a good chance to actually get those rewards. Then we also start with some tier 1 technologies, off-world agribusiness and rare earth foams, so they can be found here. This one here is rare earth foams, that gives you this module that gives you science per destroyed command points, which I never really use, I must say. And then we have colonized Mediterranean. And then we also have this one here, off-world agribusiness, which gives you this happiness building the infinite supermarkets, but it also allows you to do diplomacy with minor civilizations. This diplomacy with minor factions actually works a little bit different than with other races. So if you click on this, you can actually see that this is not praise like normal, but bribe. So you actually spend money instead of influence to raise your standing with these minor civilizations. It still works the same. Basically, you just click on it, and if you click on it again, it resets this timer and it increases the amount that you get per turn. So yeah, there's not much different except that you use dust instead of influence for this. Technology-wise, the Lumeris have a couple of special things. First of all, of course, like always, we get these hulls that no other races get. But then there is this white markets that gives us +5% FTSE production per friendly faction, but you can only build it in one of your systems. Then we have this technology which other races also have access to. However, we make it a bit more efficient, and you will see that's kind of a trend with the Lumeris. We don't really have our own specific technologies, we just make them a bit more efficient. For example, here is that normally you would convert food into production. However, the Lumeris get some extra dust when we do that. Then we've got this one here, which normally allows you to create alliances and exchange technologies and stuff like that. We also get a 10% diplomacy cost reduction. Then we have here, this one normally is 50%, but now it's 75% of production that's turned into dust. We get an extra trade route, and here, this one is also made a little bit more efficient in comparison to other races' technologies. So for the rest, there is nothing specific to the Lumeris in this tree at the moment. This white markets can already tell you that you might want to be friendly with other factions, because then you could get extra FTSE production if you research this. That's made stronger by the fact that you start off as a pacifist, which gives you +15 to +30% FTSE production per empire that you are at peace with or in an alliance with. So that can hugely increase your production, and one of these things that you produce is dust, and dust helps you getting this economic victory where you have to produce 253k of dust in order to win. So this is something that the Lumeris are very good at. Of course, it's not the only thing they can do, but it's definitely something that they're predisposed to. You don't only start off as a pacifist, you also start off in a republic, which is quite nice because the laws provide better effects. For example, here when you have the Super Tax Act, normally you sacrifice a happiness per person in order to get 3 dust per person. Now you get 4 dust. So all your laws basically get a little bit better because you are in a republic. So in the population details, it's a little bit weird with the Lumeris, because you start off with the Lumeris themselves, of course, which are pacifist, anti-militarist and hedonistic. So as you can see here, they don't really get a lot of militarist output, but they do get a lot of pacifism, because pacifistic effects increase it by a lot. And then even ecological effects also increase your pacifism by a bit. But then they start off with this Gnashast, which are anti-pacifist. So when you do pacifistic things, you only get a little bit of pacifism, but a lot of militarism. And then they also get a lot of militarism anyway. So these kind of stand in contrast with each other, and it's kind of weird. I'm not entirely sure what to do with these guys, but at least it's an interesting problem to have. So then we have the population bonuses. If we have 10 of these, we get increased pacifist output. If we have 20 of these, we get plus 15% dust on empires with Lumeris, or Lumeris, I keep calling it Lumeris, sorry. And then at 50, we don't seem to get anything. So unless that's a bug and it doesn't show anything, but well, when you hover over, or when you actually have 50 Lumeris as well, nothing is said here, so I'm assuming that they don't have anything there. So then with the Gnashast, they are just, well, all about battle. So here they are militarist, here they do more damage during ground battle, and here you get another defense strategy unlocked. So yeah, again, a little bit weird that you start off with these guys, but at least it's interesting. As I said before, I'm not entirely sure what to do with these Gnashast, but of course they might be nice if you have a system that you think might be invaded. Then you can send these Gnashast there in order to, well, help defend the system, because they do a fair amount of damage. So it does make your system more hard to actually invade properly. However, I tend to want to get rid of them because they don't provide me with anything, and they just kind of clog up all my planets. So what I like to do is, if I have a spaceport, I just kind of send them for a better life to another system that has already completely full population, and then when the ship arrives there, they can't actually land there. So then I guess the ship runs out of fuel and they float endlessly through space or something, but at least it gets rid of them. Another thing that you can do is manage it a bit more precisely, is that you go to population details and you can give the races that you want a certain amount of the luxury resource that they like, and that makes sure that that is the race that tends to increase more, and that will allow you to get less Gnashas than that you would normally get. Military ship-wise, there's not a whole lot to say, except that your ships have a fair amount of modules, but they're not very versatile at all, and they're not very offensive. So as you can see here, this ship here can have 2 weapons, 2 support or 3 support, depending on what you choose here, and some shielding. If you go to your attack ship, you can see that you actually only have access to 2 weapons, but they can actually be fairly defensive. So you might not even really need the protective ship at the beginning, although it has to be said that this one will actually draw some fire because it's a guardian, and it also has defensive, so it gets an extra bonus on its defensive module, so it might still be worth to go for these. Then we have the frigate here, and as you can see, it has not a lot of offense at all. It has 3 modules where you can actually put weapons. So as you can see, the Lumeris, they do have a lot of modules, but they're not very versatile and they're not very offensive. Of course, as always, I also want to show you the ship aesthetics of the Lumeris, and this is perfect because here is a battle between the Lumeris and the Lumeris, so let's get started with it. I really like the fact that they have these cranes on their ships. They're kind of like these big freighters, I guess. So this was my introduction to the Lumeris, which you can actually see flying here in the background. As always, I like to mention that this is not supposed to be a strategy guide, but more an introduction to let you see the atmosphere of the race, as well as go deeper into the mechanics of how the race actually plays. So I hope you found it useful, and see you next time.